Hello YouTube. I'm going to say something right now that's going to make a lot of people very upset who know me and know my stance on a lot of issues as far as it goes with the federal government and their policies. I personally don't like being able to be found easily. I like having my privacy, but I'm in a situation now that makes me a proponent of this particular policy. I do believe that we need a national ID card. It does not need to be handled by the bungling of states, and here's the reason why. Years ago, when I was a very small child, my name was Eddie blah blah blah. I'm not going to give you those names because I know there's people out there that can do things with it. Well, my parents had my name changed from Eddie blah 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 to Eddie blah 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 blah. And as a result, I was issued a name change affidavit. It was photocopied in the courtroom and it was handed to my mom. And subsequently it was handed to me when I became of legal age. I've carried this for years. The first 3 IDs I've had it in hand, including my Social Security work, so that I could prove who I was, along with my birth certificate, which showed my old name of Eddie blah blah blah. The federal government got it right. All my paperwork comes to Eddie blah 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 blah. The state still tries to catch me on Eddie blah 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 blah. My old name. Where this comes into being a real problem is every ID I've ever had made always showed my old name of Eddie blah 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 instead of my new name. And back in the day, the lady who issued it to me, she said, well, just sign it, you know, as long as your proper signature is on it, you know, they'll accept it, you know, as long as it isn't expired. So I went ahead and did that. There were a few times. The only situation I ever got into with that ID was getting on planes. This was before Homeland Security and all this other crap. I had to take a trip to another place, and they almost wouldn't let me on the plane. I had to have somebody vouch for who I was, and it turned into a big disaster, but I managed to get on the plane. But I lost my original records, my secondary forms of identification, which were my birth certificate and my Social Security card. I even had, well, I didn't have a voter registration at the time, but Hurricane Ike came through and turned all that into a ball of mud, and I don't know where it ended up, but it was destroyed. You know, I was able to get all my secondary forms of identification together, but fat lot of good it does, because it's all state and it says Eddie blah blah blah. Well, here's the problem. Even with the affidavit, they've changed their policy now. This affidavit, which has worked for me for the last few times I've had my ID done, which they still failed to correct. Every time I ever had it done, it came up the wrong name. No longer functions. They literally want me to go all the way to Florida, because Florida's law now, because of the overabundance of identity theft, I guess, you got to show up in a courtroom and get this thing, and it's got to have that little in it, you know, that the clerk stamps or whatever the hell. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, you have to be able to identify yourself to get that. Yeah, whatever. Okay. So, I'm going to have to spend a lot of money to travel, and I'm on a fixed income. I'm legally blind because of my albinism, and I'm on a fixed income. So traveling for me is not an easy thing. But if I don't do it, if I don't find a way to do it, I will not be able to vote in the next elections. I have my voter's reg and all that other stuff, but even with a voter's registration now, according to what I've been told, the next election you're going to have to present proper ID to vote, which I think is unconstitutional anyway, because then they know who you are. You shouldn't have to identify yourself to cast a ballot in a very personal way. You know, there should be some other way to prove it. Maybe you're issued a voter number or something on your registration, and that's what you use. Who knows? I don't care. The whole point of it is, I'm about to lose a lot of my assets due to the fact that my ID cannot be redone. The state refuses to grant me an ID, even though I've presented almost every single piece of secondary identification I can present within my power. So that's the other thing I want to touch on. If you ever change your kids' names, you have just screwed their life up in several dynamic ways. You know, it may be cutesy, oh, and it may be this, and it may be a token of love, and blah, blah, blah. You know what it is? It's a token of bad paperwork. That's what it is. It's the hell that you've just granted your child of bad paperwork and inability to get things done. So don't change your kid's name, whatever you do. Leave it how it was when he was born, and he'll have smooth sailing. Now, some of you out there may be laughing. What do you think about all those people during Hurricane Sandy that lost all of their paperwork? When their IDs expired, they're fucked if they don't get it resolved. There are lots of things that can destroy your secondary forms of identification. So I believe also the fact that the state can't seem to get their paperwork right. That it should be a thing now where if the states can't get their act together and match up with what the feds are saying about who you are, then the states don't need to be managing that. You know, maybe we should use the database, the Social Security database, to issue these national IDs or whatever. They don't have to have your Social Security number on it, but you can pretty much find anybody by their Social Security number to send them something in the mail. You know, every number is linked to an address that goes somewhere. And as long as their stuff is filed up to date, then it's not a problem. At least every elderly person in the country will get theirs. But, no, this has completely screwed my life up. And let me explain to you why. The other reason it screwed it up, you can't get a P.O. box without an ID now. You can't interact with your bank without an ID. There's lots of other things. You can't claim a homestead exemption without an ID. You know, any number of things. Any number of things. Everything in this digital world is now going to where you have to present just to scratch your butt, you got to have an ID now. You know? That's how bad it's getting. So, I'm a person out here in, what do they call it? Limbo. As a result of this. Thank you, Texas. Thank you. Y'all couldn't fix it the last time or the last 2 times. And now it's gotten to the point where it can't really easily be fixed. I'm making an appeal to anybody out there. Anybody out there watching this who knows a lawyer or somebody. Because, just like I said, I am a person of limited means, limited income. This thing is far beyond my ability to afford to fix this identification problem now. And I really don't know what to do anymore. I don't have the ability to travel within my power. And I know pretty much the way it's going to end up is if I don't go before a judge with a lawyer or something, I'm never going to fix this. And I have a feeling it's only going to be a few months until I can't even deal with my bank, which is going to leave me virtually penniless. I won't have a way of having money to live on. And I know there's lots of trolls and other people out there laughing at this, and the only thing I can say is I curse you with the same problem. May you have it. May you have it. For those of you who wish to help me, just leave me a message in the I don't know, the comments or whatever. I do check my YouTube regularly. I stay on top of that whenever I can get near internet. But I really, really need help with this. I really need help with this because there are a lot of things that are about to hit the fan, and I have been trying now over several years to get this fixed, and it's just become loggerheads. The other thing that happens is they say, well, if you have your Social Security card, it's not a problem, right? So I go to get my Social Security card issued to me again. They want a state ID. Hey, I need a social security card to get my state ID. Oh, well, you need your state ID to get your social security card. When you go to Florida, you're going to need your ID to get the paperwork, you know. I've got some people trying to help, loosely stated trying, but, you know, I don't know what to do. And I'm running low on time, so I'm going to have to... I'm sorry, I'm not leering at the camera. I'm watching the time, literally. I have to get close to things to see them. As I said, visually impaired. If you know somebody who you can point me to, I really could use the help. My uncle had the same problem because he was born at home and therefore he didn't have documentation of his birth. And he went through all manner of hell getting his done, and I don't have the resources he has. So that's about it, really. Thanks if you help, and if you think it's funny, to hell with you, and I curse you with the same thing.